My name is Kathryn, and I'm 54 years old. Last Tuesday, I finished what I thought would be the most important 12-hour drive of my life. I was heading from my home in Phoenix to Portland, Oregon, for my daughter Sarah's baby shower. My hands gripped the steering wheel as I navigated through the desert highways, my heart full of anticipation despite the exhaustion creeping into my bones. Sarah was having her first baby, my first grandchild, and nothing could have kept me away from celebrating this milestone with her. I had spent weeks planning shopping for the perfect gifts, rearranging my work schedule, and preparing for what I believed would be a beautiful reunion with my daughter. The trunk of my car was loaded with carefully wrapped presents, including an $800 custom crib that I had special ordered just for this occasion. As I pulled into her driveway that evening, I never imagined that the next few minutes would shatter everything I thought I knew about my relationship with my only child. Before I tell you what happened when I knocked on that door, please let me know where you are watching from and hit that like button. Trust me, you will want to buckle up for this ride because what my daughter did next changed everything between us forever. To understand the depth of what happened that evening, I need to take you back to when Sarah and I used to be inseparable. Growing up, she was my little shadow following me everywhere around our house in Phoenix. We would spend Saturday mornings making pancakes together, her small hands helping me flip them while flour dusted her nose. She would tell me everything about school, her friends, her dreams of becoming a teacher someday. We had girls' nights watching romantic comedies, painting each other's nails, and talking until midnight about everything and nothing. Those were the golden years when being her mom felt like the most natural thing in the world. Everything started shifting when David entered her life 3 years ago. At first, I was thrilled that Sarah had found someone who seemed to care about her. David appeared charming during our initial meetings, polite and respectful when he would pick Sarah up for dates. But gradually, I noticed subtle changes in my daughter's behavior. She stopped calling me every few days like she used to. Our weekend shopping trips became less frequent, then disappeared altogether. When I would suggest lunch dates or mother-daughter activities, Sarah would often say she had plans with David or his family. The real turning point came when they got engaged 18 months ago. I expected to be heavily involved in the wedding planning, but instead found myself relegated to the sidelines. Sarah's future mother-in-law, Margaret, seemed to take the lead on everything from choosing the venue to selecting the flowers. When I offered to help with the guest list or contribute to the costs, Sarah would brush me off with comments like, "David's mom has it handled," or "We want to keep things simple." The wedding day itself felt like I was attending as a distant relative rather than the mother of the bride. 3 weeks before that fateful drive to Portland, Sarah called me out of the blue. Her voice sounded different, more formal than the warm tone I remembered from our conversations in years past. "Mom," she said, "I wanted to let you know that we are having a baby shower. It is going to be on Saturday, March 18th, starting at 2 in the afternoon. I could barely contain my excitement as I grabbed a pen to write down the details. "Oh, sweetheart, that is wonderful news. I cannot wait to celebrate with you and help you prepare for the baby." There was a pause on the other end of the line that should have warned me something was off. "It will be at our house," she continued, giving me their address in Portland. "You do not need to bring anything special, just yourself." But I was already mentally planning the perfect gifts, the special treats I would bring, the photos I wanted to take of this precious moment. Looking back now, the coolness in her voice should have been my first clue that something was terribly wrong. The drive from Phoenix to Portland is one of the most beautiful journeys you can take in the western United States, stretching through diverse landscapes that change from desert mountains to lush forests. I left my house at 4 in the morning, determined to arrive with plenty of time to freshen up before the party. As I drove through the pre-dawn darkness of Arizona, my mind wandered through decades of memories with Sarah. I remembered teaching her to ride a bicycle in our neighborhood park, running alongside her as she wobbled on the pink bike with training wheels. There was the time she broke her arm falling from a tree, and how she insisted I sign her cast first before anyone else. I thought about her high school graduation, how proud she looked in her cap and gown, and how she hugged me tight and whispered, "Thank you for everything, Mom," in my ear. These memories filled my heart with warmth as the miles passed beneath my tires. Somewhere around Flagstaff, I stopped at a Target to pick up one more gift. I had already purchased the expensive crib, a complete set of organic cotton baby clothes, and a high-end stroller, but I wanted something personal, something that showed how much I cared. I found a beautiful baby book where parents could record all the important milestones and fill it with photos. I imagined Sarah and David filling out the pages together, documenting their child's first words, first steps, first everything. My final stop was at a bakery in Salem, Oregon, about an hour outside of Portland. I remembered how much Sarah used to love my homemade vanilla cupcakes with cream cheese frosting when she was little. Even though the bakery's version would not be exactly the same as mine, I thought she might appreciate the gesture. I ordered 24, requesting that they write "Welcome Baby" in delicate pink script across the tops. During the last hour of driving, I called Sarah to let her know I was almost there. The phone rang several times before she answered with a curt, "Hello?" Her voice sounded tired, which I attributed to the late stage of pregnancy. "Hi, honey. It is Mom. I am about an hour away from your house. I am so excited to see you and celebrate this special day." "Okay," she replied simply. I waited for her to say more, maybe ask about my drive or express some enthusiasm about seeing me, but the line remained silent. "Sarah, are you feeling all right? You sound a little off." "I am fine, Mom. Just tired. I will see you when you get here." The phone clicked dead, leaving me staring at the screen with a growing sense of unease that I tried to push away. When I finally reached their neighborhood in Portland, I was struck by how different it felt from anywhere Sarah and I had ever lived together. The houses were modern and expensive looking, with perfectly manicured lawns and luxury cars parked in circular driveways. Sarah and David's house was a 2-story colonial with white siding and black shutters, beautiful, but somehow cold and unwelcoming. As I parked my older Honda Civic next to a row of BMWs and Mercedes, I noticed there were quite a few cars already there. My heart lifted slightly, thinking that meant the party was in full swing and I had not missed anything important. I gathered the cupcakes and one of the smaller gift bags, planning to make multiple trips to bring everything inside. I walked up the stone pathway to Sarah's front door, my heart beating with nervous excitement despite the growing knot of anxiety in my stomach. The house looked beautiful, with spring flowers blooming in professionally landscaped beds on either side of the entrance. I could see warm light glowing through the windows, and I imagined Sarah inside, probably putting finishing touches on the decorations or greeting guests who had arrived before me. When I rang the doorbell, I heard footsteps approaching from inside. The door opened to reveal David dressed casually in khakis and a button-down shirt. His expression when he saw me was not the warm welcome I had been expecting. Instead, he looked genuinely surprised and not pleasantly so. His eyebrows furrowed as he glanced behind me toward my car, then back at my face with what I can only describe as confusion mixed with annoyance. "Kathryn," he said slowly, not moving aside to let me enter. "What are you doing here?" The question hit me like a physical blow. "I am here for Sarah's baby shower," I replied, holding up the box of cupcakes as evidence. "She invited me 3 weeks ago. This is the right day, is it not? Saturday, March 18th. Before David could respond, I heard Sarah's voice from somewhere behind him. "David, who is at the door?" Her footsteps approached, and then she appeared beside her husband, her pregnant belly prominently displayed in a flowing blue dress. When she saw me standing on her doorstep, her face went through a series of expressions that I will never forget as long as I live. First, there was surprise similar to David's reaction. Then something that looked almost like panic flashed across her features. Finally, her expression settled into something I had never seen from my daughter before, a cold mask of indifference that made my blood run cold. "Oh, Mom," she said in a voice that was completely devoid of warmth or enthusiasm. "You are here. The shower was last weekend." Those 6 words hit me harder than any physical pain I had ever experienced. I felt the blood drain from my face as I tried to process what she had just said. "Last weekend," I repeated weakly. "But you told me March 18th. Today is March 18th. David shifted uncomfortably beside his wife, glancing between us like he was watching a tennis match. Sarah's jaw tightened slightly before she spoke again. "We changed the date because it was more convenient for everyone else. I thought I told you about the change." I knew with absolute certainty that she had not told me about any change. Our phone conversation 3 weeks prior had been brief, but I had written down every detail she gave me. I still had the note on my kitchen counter at home with Sarah's baby shower March 18th, 2 p.m., written in my own handwriting. "Sarah, you did not tell me about any date change," I said quietly, trying to keep my voice steady. "I drove 12 hours to be here. I have gifts in my car. I rearranged my entire work schedule." For just a moment, something that might have been guilt flickered across her face, but it was gone so quickly that I wondered if I had imagined it. "I am sorry you made the trip for nothing," she said, but her tone suggested she was anything but sorry. Standing on my daughter's doorstep holding a box of cupcakes that suddenly felt incredibly heavy in my hands, I realized that this moment was about much more than a miscommunication about dates. The way Sarah was looking at me, the way David was positioned protectively beside her, the complete lack of invitation to come inside despite my long journey, all of it pointed to something much more deliberate and hurtful than a simple scheduling mix-up. "Can I at least come in for a few minutes?" I asked, trying to salvage something from this devastating situation. "I would love to see your home and catch up with you before I drive back." Sarah and David exchanged a look that spoke volumes. It was one of those wordless communications that couples develop, and whatever passed between them was not in my favor. After what felt like an eternity, Sarah stepped aside reluctantly. "I suppose you can come in for a little while." Walking into their home, I was immediately struck by how beautiful everything was, and also how completely foreign it felt. The living room was decorated in sophisticated grays and whites, with expensive-looking furniture and artwork that spoke of David's family's wealth. But what caught my attention most were the remnants of a party that were still visible throughout the space. Pink and white balloons were tied to the backs of chairs, though many had started to deflate. A welcome baby girl banner hung across the mantelpiece above their fireplace. On the dining room table, I could see gift wrapping paper that had been hastily cleaned up, and several cards were still scattered across the surface. The evidence was everywhere that a celebration had indeed taken place, and recently. "The decorations are lovely," I said, my voice sounding hollow even to my own ears. "It looks like it was a beautiful party." "It was nice," Sarah replied curtly, making no effort to elaborate or show me around. I pulled out my phone and, unable to stop myself, opened Sarah's Instagram account. What I saw there felt like another punch to my gut. Photo after photo from the previous weekend showed a picture-perfect baby shower in this very room. Sarah was glowing in a different dress surrounded by at least 20 women who were all smiling and laughing. There were professional-looking decorations, an elaborate cake, and a pile of gifts that reached nearly to the ceiling. In several of the photos, I recognized David's mother, Margaret, who was clearly playing the role of hostess. She was wearing a beautiful floral dress and had her arm around Sarah in multiple pictures. They looked happy and relaxed together, like the close mother-daughter relationship I thought Sarah and I had once shared. "This looks like it was quite the celebration," I said, holding up my phone to show Sarah the photos. "It seems like a lot of people were able to make it." "We wanted something more intimate this time," Sarah said, not meeting my eyes. "Just close family and friends who really understand what we are going through." The word intimate stung especially since there had clearly been at least 20 people in attendance. But it was the second part of her statement that really cut deep. Close family and friends who really understand what we are going through. The implication was clear. I was not considered close family, and I certainly did not understand what they were going through. David, who had been quietly observing our exchange, finally spoke up. "Sarah has been under a lot of stress with the pregnancy," he said in a tone that somehow managed to sound both protective and accusatory. "She needs support from people who really get what she needs right now." I looked at my daughter, searching her face for any sign of the little girl who used to tell me I was her best friend in the whole world. "And I do not understand what you need," I asked softly. For the first time since I had arrived, Sarah looked directly at me. What I saw in her eyes was not the love and connection I had been hoping for, but something much colder. "Honestly, Mom, no. I do not think you do." The words hung in the air between us like a toxic cloud poisoning everything they touched. I felt my knees go weak, and I had to grip the back of a nearby chair to steady myself. This was not just about a missed baby shower anymore. This was about my daughter telling me in the most direct way possible that I was not wanted in her life during one of its most important moments. "I brought gifts," I said weakly, as if material things could somehow bridge the chasm that had opened up between us. "I have a crib in my car and clothes and books and—" Sarah glanced toward the dining room where I could see several gift bags and boxes still sitting unopened from her real baby shower. "You did not need to do all this," she said with a dismissive wave of her hand. "We have everything we need already." David nodded in agreement. "We got everything we need from the real shower. Margaret made sure we were completely set up." The way he emphasized the word real felt intentionally cruel, as if my presence here was somehow fake or less legitimate than whatever had happened the weekend before. I felt something breaking inside my chest, a physical pain that accompanied the emotional devastation of this moment. "The real shower," I repeated slowly. "So what is this then? What am I?" Sarah's expression hardened further, and for a moment I saw something in her face that reminded me unpleasantly of David's mother. Margaret had always been polite to me, but there was an underlying coldness there, a sense that she considered herself superior to me in every way that mattered. Now I was seeing that same expression on my own daughter's face. "Mom, you always make everything about yourself," Sarah said, her voice rising slightly for the first time since I had arrived. "This is my moment. This is my family. This is about me and David and our baby, not about your feelings or what you think you deserve." The accusation felt like a slap across the face. "Make everything about myself?" I asked incredulously. "Sarah, I drove 12 hours because I love you. I spent my entire savings on gifts because I wanted to celebrate your baby. How is that making it about myself?" Because you cannot stand not being the center of attention, she shot back, and there was a viciousness in her tone that I had never heard from her before. David's mom gets it. She knows how to support me without trying to control everything or make it all about her experience of being a grandmother. I stared at my daughter in complete shock. When had I ever tried to control her pregnancy or make it about my experience? I had been nothing but supportive and excited, keeping my opinions to myself and following her lead on everything from baby names to nursery colors. I had specifically not pushed myself into her life because I wanted to respect her independence and her marriage. David stepped closer to Sarah, putting his arm around her shoulders in a gesture that felt more possessive than protective. "Maybe it is better this way, Kathryn," he said, using my first name in a way that felt deliberately disrespectful. "Sarah needs peace right now, not drama or stress." The implication that I represented drama or stress in my daughter's life was the final straw. I had been trying so hard to be understanding, to find some rational explanation for what was happening, but suddenly everything became crystal clear. This had not been a mistake or miscommunication. This had been a deliberate plan to exclude me from one of the most important moments in my daughter's life. "You planned this," I said, looking back and forth between them. "You both planned this. You never intended for me to be at that baby shower." Neither of them denied it, which was confirmation enough. Sarah lifted her chin defiantly, as if daring me to challenge her decision. David's arm tightened around her, presenting a united front against the woman who had given birth to his wife and raised her for 26 years before he ever entered the picture. "We invited the people who matter," Sarah said coldly. "People who love and support us without trying to insert themselves into every decision we make." I felt tears starting to burn behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not here, not in front of these two people who had clearly decided that I was the enemy in their perfect little story. In that moment, standing in my daughter's beautifully decorated living room, surrounded by the remnants of a celebration, I had been deliberately excluded from. Something shifted inside me. The hurt and shock that had been overwhelming me for the past several minutes suddenly crystallized into something else entirely. Clarity. For months, maybe even years, I had been making excuses for Sarah's increasingly distant behavior. I had told myself that she was just busy with her new marriage, that she was establishing her independence, that she would come around once she settled into her new life. I had convinced myself that the coldness from David's family was just different personality styles, that they were not intentionally trying to push me out of Sarah's life. But standing there looking at my daughter's sneering face as she told me that I did not matter enough to be included in celebrating her pregnancy, I finally saw the truth. This was not about me being difficult or controlling or dramatic. This was about them wanting to erase me from Sarah's story entirely, to pretend that the 26 years before David came along had never happened. And suddenly, instead of continuing to beg for scraps of my daughter's affection, I felt something I had not experienced in a very long time: self-respect. I looked at Sarah calmly, no longer trying to hide my hurt or make excuses for her behavior. "You know what?" I said quietly. "You are absolutely right." The sudden change in my tone seemed to catch both of them off guard. Sarah's eyebrows furrowed slightly, as if she was not sure she had heard me correctly. "You are right." I continued, my voice growing stronger with each word. "You do get to choose who matters in your life. You get to decide who you want at your celebrations and who you want supporting you through important moments, and you have made your choice very clear." I walked over to where I had set down the box of cupcakes and picked them up again. "Since I am apparently not family, I will keep these for someone who actually appreciates them." Sarah's mouth opened slightly as if she wanted to say something, but no words came out. I could see that my calm acceptance of her rejection was not the reaction she had been expecting. Maybe she had thought I would cry or beg or promise to change my behavior to earn my way back into her good graces. Instead, I walked toward their front door with dignity intact. As I reached for the handle, I turned back to look at my daughter one more time. She was watching me with an expression I could not quite read, something that might have been surprise or possibly the first hint of regret. "I hope you remember this moment," I said softly, "when your daughter asks about her grandmother someday. I hope you can explain to her why you decided that excluding people who love you was more important than including them in your joy." With that, I walked out of Sarah's house and closed the door behind me. I did not slam it or make any dramatic gestures. I simply left the same way they had apparently wanted me to from the beginning. Instead of immediately getting in my car and beginning the long drive home, I made a decision that surprised even me. I pulled out my phone and searched for hotels in the area. I was exhausted from the drive and the emotional devastation of the afternoon, and I realized that I needed time to process what had just happened before facing 12 hours alone on the road. I checked into a modest hotel about 10 minutes from Sarah's neighborhood and sat on the edge of the bed staring at the gifts I had brought with me. The beautiful baby books, the organic cotton clothes, the handmade blankets I had spent weeks selecting. All of it felt meaningless now, symbols of a relationship that had apparently been dead long before I realized it. That evening, I did something I never thought I would do. I called my lawyer and asked him to revise my will. Sarah had made it clear that she considered David's family to be her real family now, so I decided to respect that choice completely. The inheritance I had been planning to leave her would instead go to the charities that had always been close to my heart, organizations that helped women and children who actually needed and appreciated support. It was not done out of spite or revenge. It was done out of a recognition that Sarah had chosen her path, and now I was choosing mine. 6 months passed after that devastating day in Portland, and I did not hear a single word from Sarah. Not a phone call, not a text message, not even a social media acknowledgement of my existence. Through Facebook, I learned that she had given birth to a healthy baby girl named Emma in September. I saw photos of the hospital room filled with flowers from David's family, pictures of Margaret holding her new granddaughter for the first time, posts about how grateful Sarah was for all the love and support from her real family. Each photo felt like a small knife in my heart, but I did not reach out. Sarah had made her choice clear, and I was learning to respect it even though it was killing me inside. The call finally came on a Tuesday afternoon in October while I was at work. Sarah's name appeared on my phone screen, and for a moment my heart leaped with hope that maybe she had realized what she had lost. Maybe motherhood had helped her understand the irreplaceable bond between a mother and daughter. Maybe she was calling to apologize and invite me to meet my granddaughter. "Hello, Sarah," I answered, trying to keep my voice neutral despite the emotions churning inside me. "Hi, Mom," she said, and her tone was different from our last conversation. Less hostile, but still distant. "I hope you are doing well." "I am managing," I replied honestly. "How is the baby?" "Emma is wonderful. She is sleeping through the night now, which is such a relief." There was a pause, and I could hear a baby cooing in the background. "Actually, that is why I am calling. David and I have a wedding to go to this weekend, and Margaret is out of town visiting her sister. We were wondering if you might be available to babysit Emma on Saturday evening." The request hit me like a physical blow. After 6 months of complete silence, after deliberately excluding me from her baby shower, and never even telling me when Emma was born, Sarah was now calling me to serve as a last resort babysitter when her preferred help was unavailable. Let me understand this correctly, I said slowly. You want me to drive 12 hours to Portland to babysit Emma for one evening, then drive 12 hours back home? Well, no, Sarah said, as if I was being unreasonable. You could stay overnight and drive back on Sunday. It would just be for a few hours on Saturday evening while we are at the wedding. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. 6 months ago, I would have said yes immediately. I would have jumped at any chance to be part of my granddaughter's life, even in such a limited capacity. I would have been grateful for whatever scraps of connection Sarah was willing to offer. But I was not the same woman who had stood on Sarah's doorstep holding cupcakes and hoping for acceptance. I am sorry, Sarah, but I will not be able to help you this weekend, I said calmly. There was silence on the other end of the line, as if she could not quite believe what she was hearing. What do you mean you cannot help? She asked, and for the first time there was a hint of desperation in her voice. I mean, I am busy with my family, I replied, using the same words she had used to exclude me months earlier. Your family? She repeated, confusion clear in her tone. Yes, I said. I have found a wonderful community of people who value my presence and appreciate what I have to offer. We are having a gathering this weekend, and I would not want to miss it. This was true. In the months since returning from Portland, I had thrown myself into volunteer work with a local organization that supported single mothers and their children. I had found purpose and joy in helping women who were struggling to make ends meet, providing babysitting services for mothers who needed to work or attend school. These women and their children had become my chosen family, and they actually wanted me around. But this is your granddaughter, Sarah said, as if that should override everything else. Emma is a beautiful baby, I replied. But according to you, I am not her grandmother. Margaret is her grandmother. David's family is her family. I am just someone who used to know you before your real life began. The silence stretched between us for a long moment. Finally, Sarah spoke again, and her voice was smaller than before. Mom, that is not... I did not mean... Sarah, I interrupted gently but firmly. You made your feelings very clear 6 months ago. You told me I was not the kind of family you wanted around for important moments in your life. I have accepted that and moved on. You cannot pick me up and put me down whenever it is convenient for you. But I thought, she started, then trailed off. You thought I would always be here waiting no matter how you treated me. I finished for her. You thought you could push me away when you did not need me and then call me back when you did. But that is not how relationships work, sweetheart. At least not healthy ones. After I hung up the phone that day, I felt something I had not experienced in years: peace. Not the painful, desperate hope that Sarah would change her mind and welcome me back into her life, but actual peace with the choices I had made. I had learned that love should not require you to diminish yourself or accept treatment that makes you feel worthless. I had learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is to let them experience the natural consequences of their choices. And I had learned that family is not always about blood relations, but about the people who show up for you when it matters. My daughter chose her path the day she decided to exclude me from her baby shower and replace me with people she considered more worthy of her love. I chose mine the day I decided to stop begging for a place in her life and started building a life filled with people who actually wanted me there. Sometimes the family that truly loves you is not the one you are born into, but the one you choose to create. And sometimes walking away with your dignity intact is the most powerful gift you can give yourself. Have you ever had to make the difficult choice to step away from a relationship that was hurting you, even when it was with someone you loved deeply? How did you find the strength to put your own well-being first? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below, because I know many of you have faced similar heartbreak and found your own path to healing. Please hit that like button if this story resonated with you, and do not forget to subscribe for more real-life stories about family relationships and finding your own strength when life gets complicated. Share this video with someone who might need to hear that their worth is not determined by how others treat them, and remember that sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is choose yourself. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you all the wisdom to know when to fight for relationships and when to let them go with grace.